Hi, it's good to be back with you for week 9 of Sweeter Than Chocolate, Hebrews 11. It's hard to believe we're getting so close to the end, isn't it? I'm proud of you for being faithful and staying the course. In our time together last week, we set the foundation for the United Kingdom of Israel. We saw that Saul was the first king of Israel, but that God removed him and put David on the throne in his place. David ruled over a united kingdom of Israel, as did his son Solomon after him. Each of these first 3 monarchs of Israel ruled over a united kingdom of 12 tribes. After Solomon, though, things get a little dicey. 10 of the tribes reject the kingship of Solomon's son Rehoboam, and instead they make a man named Jeroboam their king. As you saw in your lesson, though, it was God who raised him up. I love that he does this with a visual aid right in the text. I'm going to read to you where that all happens. It's in 1 Kings 11:29 and following. And this is a little longer of a section of text than I usually read, but it is so key to understanding what's going on, and he spells it out so clearly here. So I'm picking up in verse 29. It says, "It came about at that time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Ahijah the Shionite found him on the road. Now Ahijah had clothed himself with a new cloak, and both of them were alone in the field." And here's our visual aid, all right? "Then Ahijah took hold of the new cloak which was on him, and he tore it into 12 pieces. And these pieces, of course, represent the tribes of Israel. He said to Jeroboam, 'Take for yourself 10 pieces. For thus says the Lord God of Israel, Behold, I will tear the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon and give you 10 tribes. But he will have 1 tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen from all the tribes of Israel. Because they have forsaken me, and have worshipped Ashereth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Shamash, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of the sons of Ammon. And they have not walked in my ways, doing what is right in my sight, and observing my statutes and my ordinances, as his father David did. Nevertheless, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him ruler all the days of his life, for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose, who observed my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom from his son's hand and give it to you, even 10 tribes. But to his son I will give 1 tribe, that my servant David may have a lamp always before me in Jerusalem, the city where I have chosen for myself to put my name. I will take you, and you shall reign over whatever you desire, and you shall be king over Israel. Then it will be that if you listen to all that I command you, and walk in my ways, and do what is right in my sight by observing my statutes and my commandments, as my servant David did, then I will be with you and build you an enduring house, as I built for David, and I will give Israel to you." Wow. Don't miss the deal that God is offering Jeroboam. He's offering him an enduring house like David's. So from this point forward, we now have 2 storylines going on. We have one in the north under Jeroboam, in the nation of Israel, which is comprised of 10 of the tribes. We have another in the south under Rehoboam, in the kingdom of Judah, which is made up of the tribes of Judah, which is the tribe of the Davidic kings, and then the additional tribe that the text talked about, which is Benjamin. So in the northern kingdom of Israel, all of the kings are bad. It's just one of those things you need to know, with the exception of Jehu, who does a few things right. So this is another one of those things that's a constant that you can remember. Last week we talked about the bodies of water and the map being constants, things that are just always going to be the same. In the north, the kings are evil. So if you ever run across a good king in your reading, you know he's not from the north. Now the monarchy in the north is also different from the monarchy in the south. In the north, it is all about who has the power. Now they try to pass it down from father to son, and that happens some of the time. But seriously, if you're a king in the north, you better sleep with one eye open, because whoever has the power up there has the crown. The north is marked by political coups as power shifts from one ruler to another. There's a little bit of stability when some dynasties emerge, and I refer to them as the dynasties because all of the northern kings are just a nasty bunch. They have non-Levitical priests, and the country is marked by idolatry that comes down from the top. And you know what's really sad? Is that it didn't have to be this way. God had given Jeroboam, the first king of the northern kingdom of Israel, the offer that he'd given David. But Jeroboam, instead of just accepting and trusting that, he gave in to fear. He was afraid that if he let the people go back down and worship in Jerusalem the way they were supposed to, he was afraid that they would go back to following Rehoboam, and that their hearts would turn back to Rehoboam, and that they'd eventually kill him. So to fix the problem that he concocted in his own mind, he set up his own system of worship with idols inside the borders of his very own kingdom. With that kind of leadership, it is just not surprising at all, is it, that the north had one bad king after another. Now, you probably recall from last week that in the southern kingdom of Judah, the kings are a mixed bag. Some are bad, some are good. And while the southern kingdom was made up of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, it was also home to the Levites and the temple in Jerusalem. So throughout this time of the kings, we have, like I said, essentially two storylines going on. Now, eventually the storyline will become more cohesive again, but that's after God's judgment comes. Now, the northern kingdom of Israel is conquered by the Assyrians in 722 BC. And this is one of those dates that's important to remember. If you're having a hard time placing Assyria, you need to just realize you already know its capital. Nineveh. Does that ring a bell? The place that Jonah did his best to avoid? Well, Nineveh is the capital of Assyria. When Assyria comes in and conquers the northern kingdom of Israel, what they end up doing is they deport most of the population and scatter them, but then they take other people groups into the land of Israel to resettle it. So it was a way that they conquered and controlled the people groups that they overtook. Now, you would think that Judah would have learned their lesson just by seeing what happened to Israel in the north, but they don't. In fact, in 586 BC, Jerusalem falls to Babylon, and the people are taken into captivity. After 70 years, though, they're allowed to return back to the land. So, whereas Israel's been scattered, we see the people of Judah coming back really as a people group. So there you have it. When you understand the movement from one storyline to two, and when you remember that the prophets bring additional perspective to each of the storylines, well, it's still a little challenging, but at least you're on some firm footing for your study. Now, if you're in a group, take some time to consider the far-reaching effect that Jeroboam's institution of idol worship had in the northern kingdom. And I want you to think about what kind of reach can the sin of just one person have today. Then think about this one. After Israel was conquered by Assyria because of her rebellion, Judah had the chance to learn from that mistake, but she didn't. How do you pay attention for similar lessons in your life? Before you wrap up, be sure to post your response to either or both of these questions on the blog. Last week, at the end of our time together, I asked you to explain the map of Israel to someone else. This week, I would love it if you would share with someone about the division of the kingdom. In fact, you could just keep explaining it until you come across someone who already knows it. You see, when you talk through it a few times, you'll find that the story, the framework, will start becoming second nature. And that is a sweet place to be. Not because you're amassing facts, but because you're building a firm foundation and starting more and more to understand the flow of God's story for yourself.